Uko kuno aho bano mama wanna get it nice. I know pura meso, I know pura tebe, I know kaya marigi.
Right, 20 June 2023, and I apologize for the late start of this program, and this is because there is load shedding. I'm basically sitting in the dark as we speak, and I'm using lights and a phone to connect to the internet. So it's very unfortunate. I thought the electricity was going to be back by now, but it's still gone. And because I'm moving out of my house, I have removed all my solar systems. So it's been hectic. It's been hectic for me over the past few weeks. But I want to quickly do this. This is very, very important. And this is going to be one of the most important development in the election of 2023. You remember in 2018, I walked around with Mami Juru quite a lot here in South Africa when she was campaigning. And during that time, it was very difficult for someone to campaign in Zimbabwe. In fact, challenging Mugabe was one of the most suicidal things you could ever do. And all the people who were campaigning for the presidency had to come to South Africa to campaign because they were afraid to do it in Zimbabwe. And Mugabe was a very, very vicious guy. He was not the kind of guy that you wanted to mess around with. So this takes us to the topic of today. Savior Kasukuwere has written a letter. And this letter, I think, is supposed to mimic the letter that President Mnangagwa wrote when he was coming back to Zimbabwe. This letter is directed to my dear comrades and countrymen. And as I read the letter, it was clear to me that this letter was directed to leaders within ZANU-PF. And this letter was almost a coup. That is what I can look at this letter. This letter is not a letter that you lightly write about President Mnangagwa when you say you are going to go and contest an election in Zimbabwe. I don't think President Mnangagwa would be, and the guys around him would take this lightly. The letter that is written here by Savior Kasukuwere saying he's going to contest the election, and the issues that he raises here, they go back to issues that go to 2017, and also they go to the issues that are being raised by people like Saibeth Musengezi. And if you look at the attempts in July, 31st July, I think 31st July, where people were saying President Mnangagwa must step down. These are the issues that are being raised here. And Kasukuwere is now appearing as if he's the face of something else. And what I've been telling guys is that, and people who have been talking to me privately, is that there are people who don't want an election. And it's clear to me that Kasukuwere is testing the waters here. If you go to the middle of this letter, and I've put this letter on gambako.com. If you go to gambako.com, I've put the letter here. Kasukuwere does not want an election. I do not know what these guys want, but there is something else that they want. So if you go to this paragraph here, it says, the respite that our people felt politically, socially, and economically during the government of national unity period of 2009 to 2013 should be a permanent experience born out of an inclusive governance culture, ushered in by a general consensus, or generational consensus. Zimbabweans must find each other through an intra-Zimbabwe dialogue process beyond the politics of conquest. And I want you guys to understand what this means. And this is the center of this whole letter, what I've just put here. These guys don't want an election. They do not want an election to happen. This is, this is the theory that I've been advancing for a very, very long time, that there are people who want something else to happen between now and the election, which will result in a transitional arrangement. So the guys who are looking at here, and whoever is behind guys like Kasukuwere, they do not want an election. They want a transitional arrangement. They want some sort of arrangement which will last for a longer period, other than going into the election of 2023 where we are now. And what they want is this intra-Zimbabwe dialogue process. There are a lot of people behind this idea that the election is not appropriate at this point. And I think Kasukuwere is now the first of those guys who say they want this. And if tomorrow you see Kasukuwere submitting his nomination papers and that being allowed to be done, then that would be the beginning of the end for the current government of President Mnangagwa. There is no way that Kasukuwere can contest in the election of 2023 and then President Mnangagwa's presidency just goes on smoothly, because now you're having two centers in ZANU-PF. For the first time, you're going to be having a clear opposition, because Kasukuwere is an independent. What he's basically saying is, I'm an independent of ZANU-PF. He's not an independent of an independent or a guy who just came out of nowhere. So you're looking at the old G40 appearing with the face of Kasukuwere. Remember the issues that I raised of the letter, which Grace apparently got, where Mugabe, before he died, endorsed Seva Kasukuwere as the next president. If Kasukuwere is allowed to present his papers and submit nomination, you are going to see such a letter appearing somewhere as part of the campaign. I've got no doubt about that. And I do not think the guys in ZANU-PF will be that stupid to let him submit his nomination paper. And I can assure you that he will not be able to submit these nomination papers, because it will totally decimate ZANU-PF. ZANU-PF will not be a party going into this election if Kasukuwere is allowed to present or to submit his nomination papers for the presidency, because this letter is a challenge. It's an open challenge. And I don't think you can, apologies, my electricity just came back, so I don't know how this is going to affect my stream, but you will not be able to have a ZANU-PF the way ZANU-PF is supposed to operate, with a guy that comes out and says, look at some of the things he says here. President Mnangagwa cannot be allowed to contest the election. He has failed. His family has been doing Belarus deals, gold mafia. This is extreme. The stuff that is being written here. Sorry, as I said, my electricity is back, so there's obviously a change of Wi-Fi. My other Wi-Fi is kicked in, and so sorry about that break that has happened here. So it's a challenge. It's a challenge, and it's a coup. If Kasukuwere is allowed to present his papers, a coup would have been allowed to take place in Zimbabwe. And also, you look at Mnangagwa. Mnangagwa has raised tribal issues within the past few weeks. He has raised tribal issues on Chamisa. He has raised tribal issues where he claimed that Reverend Mutendi, Chief Charumbira, and I don't know who's the third guy, and Chamisa, they had a pact where they wanted to do a Karanga alliance. These issues that are being raised here are very important, because remember, a guy like Seva Kasukuwere, he's a military guy, he's a security guy. He's got a lot of security background. So there are guys right now, as we speak, who are in the security structures, who are aligned to Xavier Kasukuwere. So if you allow a guy like that to come out and say tribal things and write letters and appear walking in Harare, then that ZANU-PF that you used to have, that is strong, that is a military structure, will not be allowed to exist. And this is why I'm saying tomorrow, if obviously he doesn't have to physically submit his own papers, but those papers, I do not think they'll be allowed to be submitted. If that happens, the presidency of President Mnangagwa is almost over. ZANU-PF is going to be deeply divided, and you will have a lot of problems. But let me finish off with my answer. Who is behind Xavier Kasukuwere? I want us to look at that. There's no one who is stupid enough to be having court cases and to run away from Zimbabwe through Mozambique and then come back walking, thinking that they will just contest without any problems. Especially if you go to court and say, I want to be allowed to contest. So you must be having someone or some assurance that you'll be safe to walk the face of the earth in Zimbabwe. If you do so, if you say such things and challenge so strongly, and you say President Mnangagwa is a failure and all that, look at this letter. I put it on Gabago.com. It's a very vicious letter. And then you think you can just walk in without assurance. There is no way. And I can assure you that this guy has the backing of some very, very powerful people. If you see him submitting his nomination papers, and then he just walks and he goes where he's going and comes the next day and starts campaigning, you know that he's being backed up by very, very strong people. And I go back to that theory that I've been advancing, that there's a third force, and that third force does not want the next 2 months to pass and then to have an election. They want the next 2 months to happen, but within and before the end of the 2 months, the election should not happen one way or the other, because this is where the intra-Zimbabwe dialogue is going. There are people who think that an election, even if it gets in Chamisa, even if it gets in President Mnangagwa, is not the solution. They want some structure which is not constitutional, because there's no way in the constitution where you can have an intra-Zimbabwe dialogue or whatever it is. Zimbabwe, when you have an election, it's a winner take all. If Chamisa takes the thing, it goes. If Mnangagwa wins, he continues with his vision 2030. But these guys, they want the intra-Zimbabwe dialogue, which is a structure, a transitional structure. And that transitional structure, I know that Chamisa and BT, they used to have this in their talks before soon after the Operation Restore Legacy, and people like Ibo Mandaza, Trevor, Ngube, everyone has their form of transitional arrangement that they want. They think that the politicians have failed and that technocrats should take over. And I'm sure 1 or 2 billionaires were involved in this arrangement, or the thoughts of this arrangement, a manipulation of the economy in Zimbabwe within the past 2 months. The economy has been totally manipulated. I've been in Zimbabwe over this past 2 years. You can clearly see that what is happening in Zimbabwe is not normal. The collapse of the RTGS dollar, RTGS, has been spectacular, and it's clearly engineered. And this is what I'm saying, within the next 2 months, if these kind of things are allowed to happen, then you're not going to have a ZANU-PF, a united ZANU-PF. And secondly, you're not going to have a Mnangagwa presidents after this. And this is why I'm saying I don't think Kasukuwere will be allowed to submit those nomination papers. And if he's allowed, then that is the end for the ZANU-PF guys. So it's clear to me, this is not grace. The grace is not strong enough. Grace is just one bit of Kasukuwere support. I do not think she's even a factor anymore. But I think there's even a broader alliance of people that think that there must be some sort of transitional arrangement. So these are the people who are seeing Kasukuwere as the face. And if you look at all the other countries that are there, there's almost no other candidate. Right now we've got Chamisa, President Mnangagwa, and now we've got Kasukuwere. If Kasukuwere becomes the strong candidate, and then you are going into a period where things are going to happen that you've never imagined, because you're going to have strong people here, security people in this election, and it will soon turn into a physical thing. It won't become a normal election that you know. Now, let me look at the comments. I want to wrap this up. Tomorrow, we're having Dr. Fedias Mteneri. We're going to continue to look at the issues that were raised by Senengamu. I tried to talk to Senengamu today, but he's not forthcoming to talk to me about his allegations of the Karanga Alliance. So let's look at the comments here and see what Richmond Mokwena said. I used to take this man serious. Can you see I am an adversary follower? I don't want you to take me serious, guys. These are just me, my thoughts. I'm just talking here, what I think. And I've been saying a lot. I can assure you, there is no way Kasukuwere can just pop out of nowhere and go to Zimbabwe. That place is not a place where you just play around. And Kasukuwere knows this, that you cannot walk into Zimbabwe and just, it's not that place. You are talking nonsense, Gabako. How can Zimbabwe be led by Kasukuwere? We have many educated people. Why do you beat Kasukuwere? Right, I don't beat Kasukuwere. I'm saying to you, there are people behind Kasukuwere because it's not normal what he's doing. It's not normal to go and slap a lion. That is what I'm trying to explain to you. If you see someone doing that, they believe that they are strong enough to do it. And remember, the man, how he left Zimbabwe, he fled like with the shirt on his back. That was all that he had when he fled Zimbabwe. Nothing has changed since the day Kasukuwere left. His house is still empty. No one has lived there because they're scared. And you think he was going to just come and say, I'm going to become a presidential candidate for no reason. That is what I'm saying to you, that when you see such a thing happening, and especially when he starts raising issues of an intra-Zimbabwe dialogue, you are talking of a different thing here. You're not talking of the normal thing. And when his friends start talk of Karanga alliances, they are going tribal. And when they go tribal, it works. It works. When someone says to you, look at those guys, they're together that side, and we are here, it starts working. But the end result you're going to have there is a fight. Everything ends up being a fight. Let's see. Kampako, you seem to know more than your words. Only time will tell. Right. I know more because I've been around these politicians a lot. Most politicians are cowards. Like, let me tell you, if you take away the bodyguards and you tell a politician to walk in Harare from First Street, most of them can't do it. They're cowards. Kasukuwere is worse because he's been hiding in South Africa here for a long time. So don't think you just have suddenly be brave to walk into Harare. You have to have some backing if you're gonna go there. And the things that happen, and that will happen in the next 2 months, they are going to tell you what I'm telling you now, that there are people who don't want an election in Zimbabwe. There are people right now who are saying, no, the election is not the right thing. And those are the most dangerous people you can get. Because if those people get their way, the group of guys that will come after that, they are going to be the most dangerous people. You are going to pray for someone like Mnangagwa, or President Mnangagwa, to be back. Because now you've got someone who is at least trying to talk to everyone. The guys that come after what you call a transitional arrangement, they will take you for 20 years or 30, and they will still be in transition. What you need is guys that follow the constitution, guys that if you are a ZANU-PF guy and you lose to your election or whatever, Congress or whatever, you accept that and you go. If you win, you win. If you lose, you lose. But the guys that will tell you that we can't lose, we want this thing that is called transitional, and I want to lead it. And they don't have any structure, they don't have any constitutional arrangement. There's nothing in the constitution that says you can do that. Those are the most dangerous people that you can have. So the guys who don't want an election, those are your worst enemies, because they want to make sure that the situation in the country becomes so difficult within the next 2 months, so that the election doesn't happen at all. Okay, so I think we're done here. I've had no electricity. I've been sitting here since 8 o'clock, trying to make sure that electricity comes. Let's see what happens tomorrow during nomination filing. There's a lot happening. Chapman's party, total confusion. CCC, total confusion. ZANU-PF, this is a new development. It has become a serious threat to the stability within ZANU-PF, and I wonder how the powerful people within ZANU-PF are going to deal with this. I know it's going to be dealt with, and by tomorrow we'll know how they've dealt with it. So the election is coming, but it is coming in a way that we have never seen before. If we're not careful, this election is going to degenerate into something else. You've already seen the CCC totally, Chamisa totally failing to handle the situation there. As I said, Chapman, his party is probably going to be deregistered. I've had information that some guy registered it in his name and he's threatening to deregister it. ZANU-PF, we've got this situation developing. There's a lot that is happening behind the scenes. With the situation at ZEC, chaos. That is total chaos at ZEC. Commissioners going against the chairman, so the chairperson. So it's an election that is turning out to be something else. But obviously tomorrow we'll be giving you more details on what is happening there. But this situation of Kasukuwere, let's see how it happens. If he is not a coward and he goes into Harare, we're going to be talking something else by the end of the week. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope that we have more detail on this tomorrow. When I talk to Dr. Fedel Teneri, we'll try to give you more detail. And then obviously, I'm going to be in Zambia next week. We're going to be meeting the Zimbabweans there for business. And we're also going to be in Harare to check out what's happening with the election there. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll be updating you almost every day. I hope to do so. If electricity doesn't do this, it's totally messing up my business, and load shedding is a problem. Thank you very much, and good night.